Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my lifting series where I try my hardest to record every single set and rep that I possibly do in the gym and continually strive to not only become better in the gym, but also entertain you guys and, improve my tempo, my progression, how I do things, and just learn and become more knowledgeable. I think that that's what this series is really about, is not only helping out you guys, but also helping out myself. It's kind of like a two-way street. Today is the last week of week 2 for my MyoMax training program. You guys can get it down below for 10 bucks if you want, but honestly, you guys do not need it whatsoever. If you want to follow along, I record everything that I do so you can just watch the videos and follow along, but it is there as an option. It's a great way to support me, and it's also a great way to just have like the document so you can record your own sets and reps and keep better track of your own progress. But of course, all you need is like a phone or notepad or whatever to record your own progress anyway. So do with that information what you will. Anyway, today is an accessory day. So we're hitting shoulders and arms and I believe a little bit of abs at the very end. I'm starting off with 3 sets of the seated dumbbell shoulder press. And the reason why I really like this movement is because since you're seated and you have back support, you're more locked into place. So you can really just focus on using your shoulders and your triceps to complete the movement, versus something like a standing military press or like a standing push press, standing barbell press. Any sort of standing shoulder press is going to involve a lot more muscles. You'll be tempted to use some knee drive, use your quads. You'll be tempted to use your abs and kind of like thrust the weight up. But when you're more stabilized, then you don't have as many options for having other muscle groups try and assist. So it's more of a concentrated and not isometric, but isolated exercise. And this program, MyoMax, is a purely hypertrophy program. So that's what we want. We really want as many movements that keep our body as stable as possible while still providing a great stimulus on the muscles that we're targeting. Anything more than that, and we're getting into some territory where it may be harder to recover from it for what it's worth. So anyway, we're going to 5 pounds. So last week I did 60s. This week I did 60 for 10 for 2 sets, I believe, last week. So this week I'm going up to 65, and we're just gonna do as many as we can, because that's the name of the game, is getting close to failure or getting to that muscular failure breaking point. Okay, I got 10. I definitely couldn't have gone another rep, so we're gonna count that as true failure. Something that I like to speak on, why I love shoulder presses of any variation really, and especially the ones that are more stable, the seated variation, is because when do you ever get like a true compound exercise for your front and lateral deltoids? Not very often. The closest thing that you can probably get is like an upright row, but that's more targeting just the delt, so you don't really get that full compound effect. Because most people, they just hit flies, they'll just do like lateral flies, front flies, rear delt flies, and then call that good. But in my eyes, why not do some single joint stuff like the flies, but also add in the compound work? I think that variety is a great thing, as long as you're not changing things up all the freaking time. That's when you're probably overdoing it. But since I include all these different variations but consistently include them in my training, I think that that's a really great way to go. And you know, maybe like a year down the line, I'll decide, oh no, I was doing it improperly, you know, now. But I doubt that. But you know, you never know. You never know what'll happen. But I mean, that's the point of me doing this, is we're continually improving. We're continually keeping our eye on the prize. Two more. I tried so hard to at least get a little bit of a range of motion with that last rep, but I couldn't even push it at all. I felt like I was pushing into a brick wall. I like to bring this up briefly. I see a lot of people when they're lowering the shoulder press, they only go like down to here, and then they'll push back up around this range. They're just keeping it here. And in their defense, it's probably because their shoulders are a little bit messed up and they don't want to go too low because it's painful. And if that's the case, I guess that's fine, but you probably don't even want to be doing shoulder presses at all at that point. You probably want to do some rehab exercises, like some band external rotation work, internal rotation work, stuff like that. However, to the guys that aren't like injured and don't get any pain, my question is, what are you doing? What are you trying to get out of it? Because if you're just up in this range, that's all tricep right there. Your delta isn't active. Your delta is just raising your arm up like this. So anything past that, you're just enacting elbow extension and getting tricep out of it. So it's not really a shoulder movement at that point. I think that if you're trying to get a lot out of your shoulders and you want to skip out on some range of motion, keep it down here, not up here, because that's entirely tricep. That's how I see it anyway. All right, this is the last set. Let's make it count. I feel like people tend to phone in the last set because they're like so close to being done with a given exercise that they'll just like do 5 reps when they should have done 10 and just count that. However, I'm trying my hardest to never let that type of thinking and that type of behavior infect its way into my training. Because I mean, I'd be lying if I said that it didn't used to. You know, I used to just be feeling off, and my justification for performing that way was, oh, I'm feeling off, but I made it to the gym anyway. And it's like, you checked off that box, so why take it a step further? Well, to be honest, if you want hypertrophy or like any real strength gains or any real performance metrics out of your training at all, then when you come into the gym, you have to be putting as much effort as you can out of yourself. You can't just be phoning it in. Otherwise, you're just exercising, which is, you know, that's great. You know, exercising, it still has its place. It's still very, very beneficial. But if your goals lie outside of that or further than that, then that's where you guys really got to be putting in that effort. So this is set number 3, but I'm going to treat it like it was set number 1. Next up, I'm moving on to the primary bicep movement of today. It's the incline bicep curl. And there's a couple things that I want to touch on before I get into the first set, and that's that The lower the incline is, so like, you know, if you're at 30 degrees or less, closer to 0, you're actually going to be providing a greater stretch on the biceps. And that's because when you enact humeral extension, so you're putting your humerus, this bone, behind your body, you're enacting a great stretch on the biceps. The further back you go, the more of a stretch you get. So when it's lower down, then gravity will be enacting upon your humerus, lowering your humerus, extending it behind your body, and thus enacting a greater stretch upon your biceps. This is great for 2 reasons. Number 1, a weighted stretch has been shown to trigger more hypertrophy in the long run. And number 2, it's actually providing more time under tension, because think about it, when you're doing like a standing bicep curl and you're at the bottom here, there's nothing that your biceps are really doing. The only thing that's working are your forearms to hold and grip the weight under gravity and under that load. So you have to actually be mid curl to be getting that tension, versus an exercise like this, when you're fully back, you're actually going to be under tension the whole entire time, no matter what you do, unless you like bring it up and bring the dumbbells up and rest them on your chest or something. So those are 2 reasons why I really love this movement, and I think that it should be a staple in anyone's routine if they're serious about their bicep training. Yeah, that's about it. Well, there's one more thing. I'm going up from 2 sets to 3, and another thing about my own progress. I'm going up from 2 sets to 3 and 35 to 40 pounds. And how I'm enacting this, how I'm performing this exercise is I'm doing it bilaterally, so both arms until failure. Then once failure is achieved, then I'll swap to like an emphasized curl on each arm at a time, so unilaterally. Because I find that when you're doing one arm at a time, you can kind of shift your weight and really sink into it and be able to go beyond your breaking point. And if you guys haven't tried this variation, I suggest that you do, because I did it for the first time last week and it annihilated my biceps. It really destroyed them, which is a good thing, I think, as long as you can recover. Okay, I'm gonna swap to unilaterally. Dang, that gets really challenging. I had to actually swap from doing that, like the full-on bicep curl with the supinated wrist, into doing more of a neutral grip, which people call hammer curls, because you're kind of naturally stronger in the hammer curl position because it's using more muscles. It's using your biceps, your brachialis, and then your brachioradialis to a larger degree. It's not using your biceps to a larger degree, but it's using those 2 muscles to a larger degree, which helps aid in the movement. So I ended up having to swap to that, but I think that that's totally fine. Like, people tend to use bicep curls, the conventional kind, a lot more frequently, and that's because people want bigger biceps, you know, and that makes sense. But I think that once you go to failure and then you want to mix it up, totally fine, totally fine. So that somebody's going to notice that while I'm doing the curl, I'm kind of like swinging my elbow a little bit at the very bottom. And, you know, I'm not intentionally doing that. It's just hard to keep your elbow really stable at the bottom of this movement. So I'm trying to keep it as stable as I can. But one of the functions of the biceps is to bring your humerus up, so humeral flexion. So by doing this and moving the elbow a little bit, that's actually not a bad thing whatsoever. as long as you're still controlling the weight. At least that's the way that I feel about it. You guys are free to disagree, but I think that as long as you're controlling the weight and not just letting it fall completely, because you really want to control that eccentric, the descent portion, because that actually causes more mechanical tension and thus more hypertrophy and, you know, obviously more muscle growth, because that's what hypertrophy is in this case. So it actually will trigger more muscle growth as long as you're controlling that negative to the best of your ability and not letting it swing around and just throwing weights around. So I just wanted to bring that up because I was reviewing the footage and I noticed that at the bottom I let it swing a bit. But I promise I'm not using momentum. At least it doesn't feel that way. So let's get into set number 2. 3 sets of these is pretty challenging. So luckily that's why I have it as exercise number 2 on this day. Okay, unilaterally. Holy heavens. Holy heck. It's really challenging. Oh, another thing is people really love to use the cue of at the top of your bicep movement, supinate your wrist all the way in and kind of curve it so that you get like the truest contraction, because supination is one of the functions of the biceps to get the truest contraction that you possibly can. I completely agree with that. You know, if you want the truest bicep contraction, that's why a supinated curl is a little bit superior over a neutral grip curl when just focusing on bicep growth, is because at the top, if you're rotating your wrist like this, then you're actually, you just do it right now. You're gonna feel a much greater contraction than if you're like a neutral grip. So, you know, at the top of each of these reps, I'm trying to supinate as much as possible. I'm not super like OCD or like really fixated on getting that full contraction, because I'm more concentrating on the weighted stretch portion, because I think that is much more important. But if you guys if you have like lagging biceps and you really, you're all out of options, let's say, and you don't know how to get them to grow, focus on that stretch position, number 1. Number 2, make sure that you're getting that complete contraction at the top. Doesn't get any better than that. As long as you're doing that, then you have good tempo and you're going towards failure. I think you're hitting all your boxes. But then of course, you know, you need to be continually becoming better, because after all, if you're not continually pushing yourself in the gym day after day, then you're probably gonna be hitting a plateau and staying stagnant, you know? That's just how it goes. And that's happened to me so many times where I'm hitting a plateau, and just the reason is because I haven't been pushing myself hard enough. I haven't been tracking my weights. I haven't been eating enough food. I haven't been hitting all these metrics, because to see gains, to make gains, you really have to be hitting, like checking off all your boxes, not just 1 or 2, not just the ones that you feel like doing. You gotta do all of them. You gotta be recovering, you gotta be eating, you gotta be sleeping, you gotta be eating enough, you gotta be training hard enough, you have to be training frequently enough, you have to have enough volume, you have to have enough intensity. So it's really the whole gambit of things that need to be involved. Anyway, I think that was enough time. I think that was, what was that, like 2 minutes? Maybe a minute and a half.
I messed you up?
No, you're good. Thank you for asking. You notice I'm cheating a lot with those extra reps at the end, but those ones aren't the ones that I'm concentrating on. It's really the ones until failure that count. Those are just like a little bit of extra, a little bit of icing on the cake. All right, now we're moving on to some more of isolatory work. I've never said it like that, but isolation work. So I'm going to be doing some cable flies and then some bilateral cable pushdowns to really focus on the triceps and on the side portion of the deltoids, so of the shoulders. So let's get into it. I'm doing the same weight that I did last time with the cable lateral raises, just because it was fairly challenging and I'd like to keep it fairly challenging for the reasons that I discussed earlier. We are going from 2 sets to 3, so progressive overload is already intact. It's already being enacted just for volume's sake alone. So since I always start off on using my right arm first, let's try and mix it up and do the left arm. I think that it's probably a good idea to mix it up from time to time, because after all, whatever side you hit first is the side that is probably going to be getting the best stimulus, even if it's only slightly, just because you're more fresh. Guess it makes sense to me anyway. All right, now on to the bilateral push down. I like using the bar attachment because with a rope attachment, it just feels more flimsy and less stable. And you guys know me, I'm all about stability. I'm going up from 72.5 to 77.5. Let's see if this is gonna hit my breaking point. Okay, so I got 10 repetitions instead of, I think I got last time 12. So we're going down a little bit in reps, but honestly, 12 is approaching the higher end of where I want to be. And I've mentioned this before, but I love the progression of pick a weight for a certain rep number. And then with that same weight, work your way up to like the upper range of where you want to be for that exercise. And then once you hit it, say you're going to 15, once you hit 15 with like 40 pounds, then up the weight to 50 pounds and get as many as you can and work your way back up. So you're constantly choosing a weight, becoming proficient at it, and then upping it you know, it's a continuous cycle. It's just a tried and true progression in my eyes. It's always just made sense to me. All right, that's at 10 again. I'm trying my best not to like hover my whole body over the cable bar when I'm doing the push downs, because the more over you are, the more muscle groups are gonna be impacting the movement, and the more you can just sink your whole body weight into it. I mean, just like, you know, have the cable and just try like kind of going over it. It's gonna make it so much easier to push down. And so when I'm like here and I'm kind of slunched over, yes, I'm a little slunched over just so I can enact that full range of motion and really control it. But I'm trying not to use my body weight to like WWE slam it down, you know what I mean? So there's a little bit of an emphasis and a little bit of thought behind everything that I do, at least I like to think. And that's the idea around that one. I'm definitely in that zone where I'm like super tired and I want to be phoning it in. It kind of harkens back to what I was saying earlier, where, you know, towards your last sets of a given exercise, it's really tempting to phone it in if you're not feeling that well, just because just getting to the gym, like you can kind of check off that box. And especially today, since I worked for about 9 or 10 hours, I'm just kind of exhausted. I didn't sleep that well, but you know, you could be making excuses all day. There could always be an excuse. Oh, I didn't eat enough. Oh, I didn't sleep enough. Oh, I'm not hydrated enough. But you know, they're just excuses. So I'm here and I'm gonna try my hardest. Set numeral trace. Six, 7. Ooh. All right. Let's set of these. I'm a big fan of this workout in particular, you know, day 6 of pretty much any of these weeks for Myomax, because I can theoretically get the whole program, or the whole day rather, of the week, you know, day 6 of each week done in the same place the whole time. Because like, all I need is this cable machine, and that takes care of like 70% of the workout. And then the rest of it is, you know, done at an incline bench. So I'll just be doing, you know, it has to be adjustable of course, but I'll be doing, you know, the shoulder press and then the dumbbell curls at one bench, and then the rest of the whole entire program for the most part is allocated to a cable machine. And all you need is, you know, obviously you need 2 cables for a lot of this because it's a superset, but it's totally doable to just do it in 1 or 2 locations. For me, it happens to be in 1 because I got the bench with dumbbells by the cable machine. So I just kind of post up and here I am for the whole workout. And sure, it kind of sucks for other people if they like need this area, but there's other cable machines, so I don't know why they would. So anyway, next up, I'm doing a superset. We're going between biceps and triceps here. So we're going to be doing the unilateral cable overhead extension, this guy. So 1 arm at a time. And then the bilateral easy bar cable curl. And the reason why I am choosing to do the cable so much in this particular day is because I'm trying to get a lot of stimulus without overly destroying my recovery. And I'm doing that by using cables because I don't think that they're as stimulating and fatiguing as something like a barbell movement or a dumbbell movement may be. And on top of that, they provide constant tension throughout the entirety of the range of motion on whatever you're doing. You know, lateral raises, even if you're down here, you're still being tugged by the cable, even though you're not actually triggering side lateral force output. You're still having to hold it isometrically with that anyway. So same holds true with each of these movements that we're going to be doing. This one in particular, you're stretched at the bottom. So whenever you're resting, you're being stretched under load. So anyway, let's start with this. Let's start with the triceps. I'm going 5 pounds on each. I don't remember the reps that I did, but it doesn't matter as long as I'm going towards failure. Hang on 6. Shit. You ever notice that with an exercise like this, where it's very single joints, it's a single joint exercise, so it's more of an isolation exercise, especially in arm movement. You kind of hit a wall. Like you add 5 pounds, and previously you could do 10, and then as soon as you add just a little increment of weight, suddenly it becomes so much harder for no reason. I think finding that wall is really important though. It's probably the wrong mindset to have, but when I get, like, I just got 8 repetitions on my right arm, and then on my left, I feel like I may have been able to do a 9th repetition, but I kind of let it go. I was kind of like, you know what, 8 is good, and that's just because I feel like you should be matching each repetition and set to each arm to prevent imbalances, and it just feels right to do it that way. However, I know it to be probably a fact that just because one arm can do a certain amount of weight doesn't mean that the other arm should. In fact, it probably means that, yeah, I mean, you should be hitting failure on both regardless of how many reps it is. So next set, no matter how strong my left or my right is, I'm gonna take the left all the way, because I think that that's how it should be done. Okay, biceps. These have never felt super great to me, but I'm gonna give them the duration of the program to dish out my fullest judgment. However, a little form cue that I'm reminding myself while I'm doing it is you're tempted to sway your hips back and forth, especially because you're being tugged forward. So you kind of want to like go like this or like hyperextend to offset that dragging force forward. So what I'm doing is I'm flexing my glutes to stabilize my hips and keep it rigid. And then I'm kind of like contracting my abs a little bit, just a little bit, in order to keep my spine relatively neutral. And then I think that reinforces the stability component and allows you to focus exclusively on your biceps, instead of having to worry about what the other muscle groups may or may not be doing. And that holds true for any standing bicep variation, for me at least. I'm always trying to keep my hips in place by flexing my glutes and stabilizing my core. Holy shit, that felt like the longest rep ever. That's the definition of a sticking point. Let me tell you that. All right. Okay. I mean, I was true to my word. I tried my hardest to get that 9th up, but I couldn't do it, so. I don't know. All right, biceps. Another thing with those cable curls is you don't want to be standing too far away from the actual cable machine, because then this is going to be where your humerus in your radius and ulnar, all of your whole arm is going to be. And that's not going to provide the greatest lengthened position for the biceps. It's just not. Versus when you're up closer, then you're being forced all the way down. Guys, I was totally mistaken. I thought that after this I had abdominal work and some like upright rows or something, but in fact I actually just have calves left. And if you guys have been following along, I haven't been filming my calf work just because I feel like it is tremendously boring to watch, and it's very difficult to just film the lower half of my body when I am trying to speak to you guys also, and I don't have a camera crew. It's just me doing all of it. So I can't really like portray both aspects without totally like going out of my way and finagling everything around. And people aren't that crazy about calf work anyway, but I'm doing, in case you guys don't have the program and you're following along, I'm going to be doing 3 sets of the seated plate loaded calf raise. And then I believe it's 2 sets of the standing unilaterally. So one leg at a time. You have a dumbbell in one arm, and then you're grabbing something with the other off of a ledge. And I'll be doing a couple sets of those. So I'm just gonna wrap it up here for what I record, and then I'm gonna go complete the rest on, by myself. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. This is the conclusion of week 2. So there's only 7 more weeks to go. I say only like it's not that long. I mean, that is a decent amount of time, but I feel so grateful that I was able to complete the first 2 weeks with so much like support. Like to those of you that have reached out and like just left a little comment and has said positive things, it really truly means the world to me. And to the one person that bought my program, thank you so much. It means a lot, and I hope that other people decide to support me and buy my program as well. Anyway, I'm not gonna go on a full rant, but thank you guys so much for watching. See you on Monday for the beginning of week 3, day 1. Bye.